Starting on the Athletes Podcast with Erin Routliffe. Is that how you say it?
That's how you say it.
Look at that. There we go. A professional tennis player from New Zealand, also from Canada. Give us a little backstory on what the nationality, where you're actually from, where you were born, etc.
Yeah, so I was born in Auckland. My parents were both Canadian, and they decided to quit their jobs and sail around the world. They were sailing for like 3 years. The trip was supposed to take 5, but then they got pregnant with me. So they decided to have their baby in New Zealand, and then they ended up staying there because they loved it so much. Had me and my 2 sisters, and then moved back to Canada when I was like 4.5. So I've been here ever since. And yeah, so I competed for Canada up until I was like 20, 21, something like that. And that's when I switched. When I was about to graduate university, I switched to play for New Zealand.
Nice. And you were down in Bama when you made that decision?
Yeah, I went to my senior year. I flew to New Zealand at Christmas time to like meet everyone, meet all the coaches, the whole organization there, and like see if it was the right fit and if it was the right decision. And I really liked it. So I made the switch a couple months later. It's like a process. You have to, yeah, it's a process.
We'll save all the details.
Yeah.
So what was that like going down to Alabama as a Canadian citizen? Obviously you just made that decision to go down to the States, go the NCAA route. What was it like playing at such a prestigious university, or college, I guess I should say?
Yeah. College is the American way, so I guess we should. It was amazing. I had a couple, I narrowed it down to a couple schools, and when I went to Bama, they took me to my first ever football game, and it was Ole Miss against Alabama, and I was just like starstruck. Like I couldn't believe how many people were there. I couldn't believe like the atmosphere and everything, and like the girls on the team were really nice. I liked the coaches, and I don't know, it just felt like the right fit. And I wanted to go to a school where I would make like a really big difference on the team and we'd make history. So that's why I went there.
Well, it is interesting because you had a super successful junior career, and the option was there to go pro right away after high school. What went into that decision to go down to the States and get the 4 years of education instead of going pro right away?
Yeah, you know what? It was such a hard decision just because, you can look at it both ways. It's like you have this education, like I have the education now, and, if something were to happen with my tennis career, I would still have that degree to like fall back on, kind of thing. But then a lot of people think that like you got to go full throttle, like plan A, like being a pro tennis player right out of high school. But I think that for me personally, I think every single person has to make the decision themselves. It was the right decision for me. I think I probably would have got burned out if I went pro. It would have been really stressful for my family, like financially and all that stuff. Yeah, it was a hard decision, but with the resources there is in the States, like to play tennis, and like it's a really high level now. I mean, maybe a couple of years ago it wasn't as high, but when I went really high level, I always played like 1 and 2. So I always played like the best person on the other team. I feel like it really helped me to play pro after college. And yeah, some people leave after 2 years. I thought about it, but I just loved it so much that I just really wanted to stay in the team environment and like finish.
Yeah, your development over the course of 4 years is probably crazy in comparison to someone who goes right pro right away or only spends 2 years. You look at football players have to do the same thing, right? You spend 4 years in that NCAA, whereas basketball, you spend 1 year and you're gone. Like you're playing professional athletes as a 19-year-old. It's ridiculous, right? Your body needs that time to develop. What was that? What was the training difference like going down as an athlete? Obviously, throughout high school, you're competing, you're doing everything you can, but one of the things we've heard extensively throughout the podcast and athletes that go down is that university or college level is just that much harder to do, that much more training, that much more expected of you as an athlete. Was that what you experienced as well?
It was just really different. Like, I feel like I really liked that there was always a schedule. Like every day was relatively the same, like every day of the week. Like it would be like, we'd wake up, 3 days a week. Well, it depends on the year, but like, for example, 3 days a week, we'd have like weights at 6:30, and then we'd have like class from like 8 to 12, and then we'd eat lunch. Then we go to practice from like 1 to 4, and then we'd have fitness again after that. And then it was like, you ate, you did your homework, you went to bed, and it was just like a cycle that you got in. And like physically, it was definitely really different just because tennis is such an individual sport. So in juniors, everything was individualized for each athlete. And then when you go on a team sport, all of a sudden, which as tennis players, we've never experienced, like we're all just like, wait, it's not all about me. It's like really weird. You have to do like fitness and as a group, and like practice obviously as a team, and like practice some things that you normally wouldn't practice as much, just because that's like another teammate had to practice or something like that. So it was definitely really different. I really enjoyed it. I think that I think I played my best tennis when I was like playing for 7 other girls for my team. And I really enjoyed it. But yeah, it was definitely really different. It was obviously, in comparison to Canadian universities, it's like crazy, crazy hard. Like they live, breathe, eat, die sports. It's very crazy, but it was different for sure.
Talk about eating. What was the food like down in Alabama in comparison to up in Ontario?
Now that's something I want to talk about.
There you go. Yeah, I want to hear about it.
Oh my gosh, I love Southern food. I mean, I'm probably not the best person to talk about, because now I have all these food allergies. I can't eat any of the good stuff. But when I was down there, I was really I liked it. I liked it a lot. They had, the classics like Southern fried chicken, like, oh my gosh, grits. I had grits for the first time when I was there, and
Oh.
I had I didn't like them, to be honest, but people might hate me for saying that. What's another one? Oh, like, I don't know if you ever had like white Alabama barbecue sauce. Probably not.
Never.
Oh my god,
Never.
it's so good. It's literally like the reason why. No, I would always joke to my coach. I'd be like, that's why I came to Alabama. But it is really good.
And was the recruiting process interesting as far as when you had other opportunities to go to other schools? Was it clear cut once you got to Alabama that was you wanted to be part of the Roll Tide?
No. So I took 4 visits. I went to Alabama, UCLA, University of Florida, and then Mississippi State. I went to Alabama first, and so that was kind of like an eye opener. But then every other school. Oh no, wait. Did I go to Alabama first? God, this is so long ago. I'm getting so old. I think I went to Alabama first, and then I think after that, every school I kind of compared it to Alabama. And originally, like, if you'd asked me without visiting the schools, that's why I always tell people that if you can take your visits, like, take them, because it completely changes your mind. Like, if you'd told me before, I would have been like, yeah, I'm gonna go to UCLA. I'm just taking my visits because, like,
It's a free trip.
yeah, no, yeah, literally, it's a free trip. You get to meet all these people. It's so cool. And then UCLA, I really did like, and they'd won a bunch of national championships before. I think they were like number 1 or 2 when I visited, but it actually ended up being between Alabama and Florida. I think the final decider was just that I wanted to go to a school that had never like won an SEC championship before, won a national championship. Like, I wanted to be like the first to do that kind of thing.
So you have that goal in mind, and then you end up winning 2. How does that happen?
It worked out pretty perfectly. If I now that I say that, I'm like, okay, yeah, that did work out pretty well. But
Yeah, you had a crystal ball, clearly.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
So what was winning 2 national championships like? Can you put it into words even?
Not really. Yeah, so many people ask, like, they used to ask it all the time, and I was just like, no, you can't really describe it. Like, my freshman year, like, will go down as one of the best years of my life. Like, we won the SEC as a team. We won the conference, sorry. And that was the first time that Alabama has ever done that in history. We beat Florida, which was for the first time in history, and my partner and I like clinched that match in Tuscaloosa. And like, when I watch the video now, like, I just get chills, like, just so amazing. And like, you do the whole, like, everyone dog piles you. It's like in the movies, which I'd never experienced. And then yeah, winning the Natty was like just amazing. And the girl that I played with is my best, like one of my best friends, even now to this day. So I think that's why we did so well together, Maya, is that we were just like so close, like off the court. I feel like that translated onto the court, and that's why we were so successful. So yeah, no, I like honestly winning the national championship twice was amazing, and I like it was so much fun. But winning the SEC championship as a team was almost better, or like beating Florida as a team, just because it was like you could celebrate it with everyone. Whereas
Mm.
like when we won the NCAA, um, when we won that, it was like obviously incredible, but it just like wasn't as like together. So
Yeah, you've got that sense of camaraderie when you got 8 other gals with you and competing against a whole other team, right? There's a sense of accomplishment when you're doing it as a group. What we transition now to like the fact that you're playing professionally, you're down in New Zealand, you're killing it, you get to tan on the beach, you get some nice weather down there, you avoid the Canadian winters. What's been the best aspect of the past couple of years as far as now being a professional and dictating where you go, basically, because ultimately it's on your shoulders now. You don't have a team to rely upon.
yeah.
What's that added pressure like, and how are you handling it?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like going from juniors to going to college was so different, and then going from college to going to pro is like even more different, because now I don't have all the things taken. When you're in university, you have everything taken care of for you. Like you finish your workout and you have like a protein smoothie like literally waiting for you. It's like ridiculous.
Must
And
be nice. Fuck.
yeah, no, it was goals. I loved every minute. And then so now like obviously there's tournaments in every basically tennis is so weird, like you can basically play wherever you want. So yeah, I'm definitely in charge. So I just talk to my coach, and then obviously like financially you have to do all that and figure out like where's the best to go financially, but like where are you going to get your points, and like where you're going to play with a different person or the same person, because I play a lot of doubles. So yeah, it's definitely really different. I think I've handled the pressure pretty well. I've had, obviously everyone knows in sports there's ups and downs. So there's been like some pretty down downs and then some like really high highs, I would describe it as. So yeah, no, it's been good. The first, I think it was like, yeah, first year out of college, I got to play Wimbledon like basically a year after I graduated, which was really quick to be in a Grand Slam. So I was pretty proud of that.
How sick was that being on Roland Garros? Like, unbelievable.
Yeah, the at yeah, no. So we qualified. Me and the girl actually went to Alabama, but we were never on the same team. She's a little bit older than I am, and we
Okay.
just decided to play together when I got out of college a little bit, and we were really successful together. So we were like, okay. And then she was like, oh, like Wimbledon has qualifying this year. Like, do you want to come? And I was like, oh, like I don't know if we're gonna get in. And then I kind of looked like the last couple years, and I was like, yeah, I'll just take a chance. And so I booked a flight to London after a vacation actually with my sister in Thailand. So like I had not trained for 2 weeks, and I was just like, I have to do this. Like I really have to. And then got there, and it was the craziest thing ever because we were like first team out. So we didn't actually get into qualifying. And then we were like sitting eating lunch, like depressed. We were like, what? We're in London for nothing. Like this is so dumb. And they call our name on the speaker, and we were like, that's so weird. That is like what's happening. And they called us to the office and they said they made a mistake, and we were like the last team to get into qualifying. And so
Oh,
like so then we ended up having 2 matches to qualify, and we played really well and qualified, and I think we played the number 3 team in the world. They were the defending champions. They won Wimbledon the year before. And we lost in 3 sets, but it was just the most amazing experience. Like that was actually I keep saying it's my first Grand Slam, but it was my second, because when Maya and I won national championship in college, we got to play in the U.S. Open. We won this like U.S. Open playoff thing, which I
damn.
don't even like. Yeah, we played that, and we were just so starstruck the whole time. Like literally, I think it was 2015 that we were so starstruck the whole time. But then, obviously, first Wimbledon is a big deal too. So that was
For
fun.
sure. What goes into deciding whether you're playing singles or doubles in a tournament? You're like, take us through, because a lot of the athletes that are listening to this don't necessarily know the ins and outs as far as tennis is concerned.
Yeah.
What's the decision making process like?
So like you basically just decide like what you're better than like better at, and like you
Hmm.
can play only singles, you can play like only doubles, or you can do both. So you can do whatever you really want. I've always been better at doubles. My ranking has always been better at like been better in doubles. So what happens is when your ranking goes like up in one, like higher than the other one, then you have to like change your schedule according to like what your rankings are, because obviously like for instance my doubles ranking is always higher than my singles, so I will go to higher doubles tournaments where I like
Hmm.
probably wouldn't get into singles, but then if I wanted to play singles I'd have to go to a lower tournament. So it's just like you just kind of figure out, like most people, like if they only play doubles, like they're called like a double specialist, and then if you only play singles you're not really called a single specialist, you just mostly play
You
singles.
just play tennis.
Yeah, you just play tennis. It's really weird. So yeah, it's a little bit confusing, but basically you just, I mean, you do whatever you want, where you play to the highest tournament that you can get in with your ranking. So
So do you think you're ever going to come back and play and represent Canada then, or is it New Zealand here moving forward? Because, especially in the past couple of years when you've got a gal like Bianca
yeah,
Andreescu, I think that's how I say your name. Anyway, she
yeah,
comes out, she dominates for Canada. She gets the whole nation wrapped up and excited about the fact that she's, competing, beating Serena Williams at the Rogers Cup. How much does that give you an idea and sense of, I want to represent my country and my nation?
yeah. So it was really hard when I um started talking with the people in New Zealand about switching to play for them, just because I am Canadian. I've lived here basically all my life. I was born in New Zealand and I had a passport then, but like I was literally 4 years old. So I
Hmm.
don't even remember, basically, I don't really remember anything. So tennis is such an individual sport that you really just have to make the best decision for you, no matter what it like, no matter how it's like, no matter how much you don't want to make that decision, if that makes sense. So
Hmm.
obviously if I could play for both of them, I always say that if I could play, like have my flag and have half New Zealand and half Canada, that's what I would love to do. But
Mm.
when you play such an individual sport, and like obviously there's things like Olympics and all that stuff on the line, you kind of have to like pick who you're playing for. And at
Hmm.
the time, that was really the best decision for me and for my tennis. And there's nothing against nothing against Canada at all, or anyone here, but yeah, it's a little confusing just because I mean I don't sound like I'm from New Zealand.
No, you give off a bit of a Canadian accent,
Yeah, so I always say I'm definitely more Canadian, but that in tennis it's honestly like it's not a rare occurrence that people switch to play for the nationality that best suits them. So that's kind of just what I had to do for my career, and yeah, I'm really happy. Like getting to play Fed Cup for New Zealand I've done it 4 times I think, and just this past February before everything went down, we had our Fed Cup and we got out of the group. Like, so we went up a level in Fed Cup for the first time in
Hmm.
10 years. So,
Wow.
yeah, that was really good. And that's definitely that was the goal. Like, now it's just to just try and keep getting New Zealand up higher and higher in the group. So,
So playing New Zealand, not a bad spot to be able to spend your time train.
mhm.
Where are some of the best places that you've been able to go playing tennis and the sport that you love? I'm sure you've got some amazing places that you've been able to visit through tournaments, training, etc. What's the top three maybe for Erin?
Yeah, top three, I would say, um, I love playing in
Dun-dun.
yeah, this is hard. This is really hard. I've been to too many places. Thailand was amazing. They were smaller tournaments. But it was just like such a great experience because my sister came with me, and after the 2 weeks of tournaments we did like a little vacay. So I have like good memories from Thailand, and it's always so hot, which I love. The food is amazing, so cheap, and the people are so nice. And then the beaches, obviously. Um Australia. I love playing in Australia. Like, I've met some amazing people there. Two of my best friends are Australian, like just because I met them in the last 3 years. And I've spent a lot of time there, just being like in New Zealand and having them there. And then what's my third one? Maybe Well, I love Mexico, like really
Mm.
love Mexico, which is super random. People are like, "Ooh, dangerous," but I love it. I think the people are so nice, and I love the food. So those are my
There you
top.
go. Some
But
enchiladas for you.
obviously, Canada, New Zealand, we're like exiting those out because those are like obvious.
Fair enough. Fair enough. That's a good point. That's fair enough. Uh, how are you dealing with quarantine right now? Before we started, you said you haven't even really stepped on a tennis court, which is mind-boggling. But it's a lot of athletes are going through that right now, where they're not able to play, they're not able to do the sport that they're or train for the sport that they're competing in. It's got to be tough. It's got to be wearing on you right now, and you've got to be itching to get back on the court. How excited are you, and what have you been doing to stay in shape in the meantime?
Yeah. Oh, it's been so weird. Like I feel like the first month, so I flew back from New Zealand on March 12th, and I was on my flight from Auckland to Houston, and that's when I found out that like tournaments were canceled for like 6 weeks minimum, like on the flight. And I was like, whoa, this is gonna be like interesting. And it's just been so weird. I mean, I've been doing home workouts. I took the first month like completely off. I just was like, well, I mean, what is like, they kept delaying tournaments, and it's so hard. Like, as a competitive person, like when you're not training for something to like compete and win at, I find it like really hard. And I've been watching a lot of videos and like reading articles about other athletes like having trouble staying motivated, and I so felt that. It was like so hard to just like it felt like I was training for nothing.
It's because
But
people aren't listening to the athletes podcast enough.
yeah.
That's
So
what it
people
comes down
get
to.
motivated.
There you go.
We're here. So yeah, and then so then I've just been doing like an at home like program. Like my fitness trainer in New Zealand like she sent me like one for the next month, and I've been doing that for like a month already, so I'll just keep doing that. And yeah, it's really hard. Like not playing tennis since I think it's like March 8th or something. Like that was the last time I stepped. Oh, that's a lie. I went with a friend like 3 weeks ago, and I hit for like 20 minutes, and I was like, whoa, I'm really rusty. I was so bad, and I was like, gotta get back out there. But the courts have started opening around here now, and then I'm actually getting on a plane to fly to Florida on June
Nice.
3rd. So I'll be able to go down there. I have a really good friend that lives there, and we'll be training together. So hopefully
Nice.
tournaments start in August. If not, then I'll train anyway, and if they do, then even better. That'd be amazing.
There we go.
Yeah.
What got you into tennis? It's not exactly the stereotypical sport that, kids choose at a young age. What was the inspiration?
Um, yeah, I think my parents really liked tennis. Like they were never competitive or anything like that, but they just like played for fun. And then I grew up in Caledon Village. I don't know if you know where that is, but there's like a small like club, Caledon Tennis Club, with like 4 courts, and on Wednesday nights they had free tennis for kids.
Mm.
So I think I was 6 when they first started. They put me and then both my sisters in there too, because they were like, get rid of them. And then I think that I just like really loved it. And then I met my coach. I think I was like 9 or 10 when I first went to Guelph, where I met my coach that I worked with for like 10 years. So yeah, nothing really like it wasn't really in the family. Like they really liked it to play for fun, but and my sisters hate tennis. Now that they've watched me like grow up and like we're always coming to tournaments, they're like, I hate this sport. So I don't really know. They're just like Wednesday night, Caledon Tennis Club.
There you go. And what are you looking forward to most now as you progress through your career? Obviously, still super young. Do you have specific goals that you're setting for this next upcoming year, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road? What goes into that process, and how are you planning to make sure that you become successful moving forward, or what's the plan in place?
Yeah, it's definitely have a lot of goals for myself. I think one of them is to just be like when it comes to numbers, it's really hard because like sometimes as
For
athletes,
sure.
I mean everyone knows it's like you set yourself a number and you don't get there, and then you're like, oh, what am I doing kind of thing. I definitely like within the next like 2 years I'd like to be like top 40 would be a goal. And
Hmm.
I predominantly play doubles, so that'd be my goal for that.
Hmm.
yeah, the plan is just, my coach is in New Zealand, so I just try to see him as much as I can. And yeah, like just, have a schedule, make the right schedule, keep learning. The thing is, like, every single week I learn something different about myself, about tennis, about like my game, all that stuff. Like, it's just every week is so different. It's in a different country, all that stuff. And it's just so nice to be able to like do that every single week. But yeah.
So you're taller than the average woman, to say the least.
Just a bit.
What do you what are you, 6'1", 6'2"?
Yeah, I'm
6'2". Yeah. I remember when we were standing at Erica's party, you were inching up on me. Had to make sure I got up on my tippy toes, But
I like that shout out.
Yeah, oh yeah, 100%. I gotta make sure I threw her on. That's the reason we're on here. How do you try and emulate a specific game after someone? Like, are you trying to replicate another taller athlete? I think of a John Isner from the male side.
Yeah.
I'm, going back to my WTA 07 Xbox games, like I'm trying to reference. I have no idea. I came out of the top of my head there, but are you?
That was a good one though. Like that's.
Hey, that's why I'm on the hosting the Athletes podcast. I'm not just some chump here. I got a tennis racket in the back here. Even look at that. It's like I planned it or something.
Yeah.
It's been sitting there all 35 episodes. So. It hasn't moved once. That's how much of an athlete I am. But are you? Where are you at as far as a doubles player predominantly? Does it help the fact that you're taller? Is that one of the reasons why you think your doubles game is, more advanced, or what's some details on that?
Yeah, I think there's pros and cons. Obviously I think my serve is a little better because I'm above average. Let's go with that.
Yeah.
I think being at the net and just being like a taller person is a little bit intimidating for the other side of the court. It's just harder to get around, basically, just because I have longer arms.
Yeah.
But then there's some cons. Like, I've always had to work on my footwork, no matter what age I was, no matter how confident I was feeling. Like, my feet were always the first thing to go. So I'm like, I really have to work on that at all times, no matter what. And if I forget to work on it, then you can tell. So yeah, definitely there's pros and cons to being tall.
Got to get that football wide receiver ballet training in. That's what they do. Those football players, they're making sure they get those toes in. Obviously a little different, but I think there's maybe some cross training you might end up benefiting from if you look into it.
You know what? I should work on just get the tap. I feel like tap dancing might work because it's like quick feet. So tennis.
There you go. Hey, this is what you come to the Athletes podcast for. All this stuff. You're just learning so much.
Yeah.
One of the main questions we ask every athlete that comes on the podcast at the end is, what advice would you give to a younger athlete, maybe who's interested in coming in, joining a sport? They didn't make that high school team. They're working on going to the NCAA, whatever it is. What tips and tricks would you give now as a professional to the younger generation of athletes?
Whew, loaded question.
Got lots of time.
I would say that no matter what you're doing, that you just have to absolutely love and be so passionate about what you're doing, because it's like anything. Like, if you're in the workplace or if you're, all that stuff, then you're going to have to love what you're doing. And that's when you're going to be the most successful at it. So yeah, I really loved tennis from the very beginning. And even when it was completely for fun, like when I was 6 years old at Callan Tennis Club, like Wednesday night for kids, like I loved it. And then when I absolutely hate it, I still love it. So it's like, you just have to be so passionate about what you're doing. And I think that that's really all there is to it. Have the most fun. And if you're having fun, then you're going to be the most successful no matter what it is that you're doing. So probably a little bit of a basic answer, but
no, hey, that's all right. I realized I've got a couple more questions. So we'll a little pump fake to all the listeners there. We're keeping it going. You sent me a photo with like 4 rings on your fingers, huge flex. We got to bring it up. Like I swear to God, your hand was falling down lower because you had so much weight on your fingers.
Yeah.
Just give a little quick description of each of those rings if you can remember them off the top of your head, so that when we post this on Instagram, people can look through them.
Yeah, that's easy. So one of them was the I think it was I went there in 2013. Yeah, 2014 SEC championship. That was as a team we won that. So everyone on the team got them. I think it's red. That was the red, like smaller one. And then the two really big ones are when Maya and I won and NCAA's twice.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
that's that.
Huge flex. Had to make sure I got that in
That
there.
is definitely a huge flex. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
And the last question is also, you're not the only athlete in your family. So let's hear a bit about your sister and the work she's putting into her sport.
Yeah, so my baby sister Tess she's a dwarf and she is a Paralympic medalist in swimming. So she started swimming when she was, I don't know, 13, 14, and she won her medal when she was 17. So she's a boss.
I like it.
Yeah, I went to Rio when she won her medal in the 200 IM, and she is just incredible and praise her every single day. She's amazing. And then actually my middle sister needs a little bit of shout out because she went to school in the States on a volleyball scholarship. So
jeez,
we like the sports.
Yeah, the Routliffe gals are just dominating the athletic industry. There we go. Well, Erin, thank you very much for coming on the Athlete Podcast. Appreciate it. And we'll look forward to seeing you dominate for the next decade representing New Zealand, unfortunately. But you know what? Us Canadians will still cheer you on because we support our locals. But thank you again for coming on. Really appreciate it. And hope you enjoy the rest of quarantine because we might be here for a while.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That was really fun.
Of course. We'll do it again after you get that W at Wimbledon.
Perfect.
All right. Take care.